GigaSign is another way that we can send bulk transactions using Adobe Sign. In this section, we'll do a quick introduction to what GigaSign is and where it differs from MegaSign. Then we'll go ahead and take a look at setting up our GigaSign, preparing our CSV file, and then running GigaSign. We'll then finish off this section with some management of those GigaSign transactions. So first off, the differences between MegaSign and GigaSign. Why would I use one over the other? Well, as discussed earlier on, MegaSign really only supports up to 300 transactions, where if you do have large bulk sending requirements, GigaSign supports up to 2,500 transactions. Also, GigaSign supports multiple recipients and some advanced features. On a row-by-row basis, we can indicate the password that's required, different signers that are required, and different options, including different CCs and different message and so on. We'll take a look at that when we get into the CSV file. There's also an advanced feature with MegaSign, there's also an advanced feature with GigaSign called File by Row. Now, what that feature allows me to do is to actually send different documents to each recipient. So we can actually specify in the CSV file what document we want to send to that particular recipient. From a management perspective, one of the features of GigaSign that I like a lot is the fact that you can download all of those transactions in bulk. So again, this can be done from the utility itself. It's not going to be done through the Adobe Sign dashboard. To set up GigaSign to run, you will need to have an integration key or an access code token configured within your Adobe Sign environment. We'll take a look at how you can do that and then enable the scope of that integration. We'll then take the integration key and then move that over to our Adobe GigaSign application. To create that token or that integration, you can go through either your account, group, or profile. So I can go over to the right, choose my profile, for instance, and what you'll find is that when you go in there, you've also got something called access tokens under your personal preferences. So in here, if I need to create a token, I can click on the plus sign over here on the right, give it an integration name of some sort. Let's call this GigaSign Training. And then what we can then do is enable the scope of this integration. Basically what we're doing here is we're saying we're going to use an external tool to interact with Adobe Sign. What privileges or what features am I going to enable for that external application? So what I normally do for GigaSign is I choose user read, write, and login. I also use agreement read, write, and send, and then I usually just choose library read. If you want further information on which ones you should and select, there is actually a very good user guide for GigaSign that explains what we should be using here. So I'm just going to choose those ones by default, and of course you can always come back later on, and if you need to change the scope, add something, or remove something from a token, you can do that. But I'm going to click on Save. Now that's going to go ahead and create my access token up here. Now you'll see that if I double click on that, it will then open up a key which I can then copy. I'm going to select it and copy that to my clipboard and then close out of that particular dialog. So then what you'll want to do is keep that key somewhat confidential, because of course it will be giving you access. It'll give that application access right to your account. So then once you've got that key, let's go ahead and set up GigaSign. GigaSign can be downloaded from the Adobe Sign website, and and that will give you a zip file that you'll extract to some location on your system. Once you've extracted it, you will need to have Java installed. This is documented as well in the user guide. You can see here I've got the user guide for GigaSign here. But once you've set up your Java and you've got the utility extracted, you'll see that we have a GigaSign jar file here. So what I'm going to just do is simply double click on that jar file and it should load into memory. Once it loads, you can take your integration key. We're going to go up to the top right-hand corner where the settings are. And in the settings, you can go ahead and it's opened up on my other monitor, so I'll move it over. You can go ahead and paste that integration key into the box at the top. Then you'll need to enter in your account, your Adobe Sign account email address in here as well. Now there's some optional settings as well for if I want to actually send my GigaSign transactions on behalf of somebody else, I can actually put in the sender email, a callback address, as well as a post redirect URL. So here, for instance, I could go http:// and I'll go www.aftia.com. So once the person signs, they will be redirected to that particular site. Now, other options in the settings that are worth mentioning, and I think what we're going to try and do here today is we're going to try and use the file by row setting. So you'll see that I've turned on file by row, which it does give me a warning that says changes in CSV format. So what the file by row feature allows me to do is send a different document to each recipient. And in our CSV file, we will identify what document we want to send to that recipient. Again, that's optional. I'm going to click on Submit to set my options in GigaSign. So next, let's go and take a look at the actual spreadsheet that we're going to use for GigaSign. Here I've got it open. I'll open it. I'll bring it up here, and we can take a look at it. And what we'll see here is the first column is going to be email address. And what might be worthwhile here is jumping back over to PowerPoint. And I'm going to bring up a slide. See all slides. And we'll go to configuring the CSV file. So what you'll find in the CSV file is that you can specify the recipient's email like you could with MegaSign, also the message agreement name. You have a carbon copy, that's going to be column D. Now, it's a different formatted CSV file between GigaSign and MegaSign. If you recall with MegaSign, you have specific column names. In GigaSign, the names aren't really that important. The text that you have in the first row of your spreadsheet are not important. It's really down to what column that data resides in. So column A will always be used to identify the recipients, as well as their role, their authentication type, if you're going to pass in passwords, and if you want to use a group, a recipient group as well. Column B will be a message. C is agreement name. These are all pretty straightforward. D is a carbon copy recipient. E is going to be the reminder frequency that you want to include for that particular recipient. And here you can see that there are specific keywords that are required. Daily, weekly, every other day, underscores under there, every under third under day as well, or every fifth day, for instance. But these are keywords that GigaSign will use to identify the frequency of that reminder. We can also specify a days till expiration. And then column G is something called the identifier. The identifier is used for that file by row functionality if you're going to use it. So if you want to send different documents to each recipient, we're going to use column G. And anything higher than G, so H forward, are going to be merge fields that you can use to merge data into your actual agreement. So let's go back to our CSV file and take a look at setting that up. So the first thing is the column A is going to be your recipient. So where this is different from GigaSign is that I can put some advanced features in here, including passcodes or passwords. I can create recipient groups, and I can also identify multiple signers. So for instance here, if I wanted to send it to John Doe and then I needed to send that to Tony Blue, I could go in here and here I'll put acme.com or something like that. So if I wanted to send this to multiple recipients, I can go and continue to put email addresses in here that are just going to be comma separated. So, and in this case, I can send this first transaction to John, to Tony, and to Terry, all in one transaction. So I can handle multiple signers. So that's good. That's nice. Another thing that you could do is if you wanted to do a recipient group. Remember, recipient groups are where you can identify a group, and then it will go to let's say however many people are in your group, but only one person needs to sign it. So let's say maybe an example could be John Doe needs to sign first, but then it's going to go to a recipient group. And what I'm going to do here is put round brackets around Tony and Terry. That is going to create a recipient group in my GigaSign. So again, John will get it, he'll sign it, then it will go to both Tony and Terry at the same time, and they will, only one will be required to sign that particular document. Okay, so let's get rid of our multiple signers. Another thing that you can do here is you can specify the role of the user. If you recall, the role is things like approver, signer, certified recipient, those kind of things. So if there was a specific role that you wanted, let's say for instance here I wanted John Doe to just be an approver, I could put a square bracket for square bracket. So again, all of these options are going to be identified within the GigaSign user guide that is provided, but it will give you options for setting the role. But so groups are identified by the round brackets. Role is identified in options in the square brackets. If you wanted to put a passcode on this particular document, what you can do is put curly braces and then your passcode. Let's give that a try. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's going to be my passcode. And then I'm going to close off the curly brace on that. And then, of course, for Jane Smith, I could do a different passcode. Again, I'll go 987654321 for Jane, and I'll close that off. And then for Tony here, I won't put a passcode at all. It's always a good idea to use passcode type configurations if you're going to be passing around any kind of personal data or PII that you would like to protect, I think. One tip that I have from one organization that I worked with is that they will use, rather than going and creating and sending off that passcode to John and Jane so that they know how to sign their document, you can go and use something like the person's birth date or their account number or Medicaid number, whatever that might be, that they're going to know, and you can put that into the message. You know, in the message you could say, you know, good afternoon, John, please review and sign this agreement. Use your birth date as in a specific format as your passcode to get into the document. So again, you're putting a level of security on the document that will prevent people that don't have that information from being able to get into that document. All right, so let's leave that one as is. So let's close that down. Then, of course, you've got the message. Here I've got a personalized message to John, Jane, and Tony. I've got their agreement name. If I wanted to include a CC for this particular scenario, I could do that as well. I'll leave that one blank. Here's my reminder set to weekly, and then I've got my expiration set to 30 days. Now, in the case of identifier, the identifier is an interesting feature. It's essentially a search parameter where we can tell what we're going to do is with GigaSign is we're going to identify the folder that they're going to use to go and grab documents, and we're going to tell it to search that folder for a document that contains an identifier of some sort. Again, that can be something fairly simple, but what I'm going to do in this case, let's go take a look at the actual folder we're going to use. So we're going to use a folder called, I've called it Scenario 2 File by Row. And I've got a docs folder, and this is where my documents are. And you'll see that I've got two variations of my partner agreement. One is for new agreements, and one is for renewing agreements. So you can see here, I'll open up one of these. Let's open up document 2, and you can see that it's got agreement document for renewing partners. I guess I didn't really need to open it up. I could have just done the preview. And then the other one that we have, if I click on it, you'll see it just says agreement document for new partners. So I've got new ones. Document 1 is for new, and document 2 is for renewing partners that we may be sending our transactions to. So that's going to be our folder, our docs folder. So here what we can do is we can put some kind of an identifier in here. So I could put maybe doc 1 for this one. And this one here, I can put doc 2. And here, let's go back to doc 1 again for whatever reason. Okay, so there's, I can put some kind of an identifier or search parameter. So when it starts searching that document, that folder, it will match the document that is in the identifier column. Keep in mind that if you were publishing documents, maybe from another system, maybe you write that file out to the folder and it might have the company's name. It could have their contract number, and then in the actual file name, and then you could just supply that information here in the in column G and use that as a search string. Okay, and then after, as mentioned earlier on, anything after column G is going to be our merging fields that we're going to merge into our documents itself. So there's our spreadsheet that we're going to be using for our GigaSign. Let's close this down. And we're not going to, yeah, we can save it. I think we made a change to the passcode information, so we'll save that. And it looks like it wants me to save it as a new file. So let's go ahead and I'll just put GigaSign data, and I'll call it data 2. And I want to put that into my the right folder here so that we can grab it when we run the actual job. So I'm going to put that on my OneDrive, where I have a folder called Sign, and then we have a folder called GigaSign. And let's go into Scenario 2, and I will put it in there. So let's save it. Okay, so we've got our document, or our CSV file is saved. So we've set up our GigaSign. We've got our CSV file. We're already familiar with our partner agreement that we're going to be using for this one. So let's just go ahead and run our GigaSign. Okay, we're back into our GigaSign application. So depending on how you're going to use GigaSign will determine what you're going to select first here. If you're just using GigaSign in the traditional method, which is you've got a spreadsheet, you're going to be sending the same document to every single recipient, then you could just simply go to the browse window here and grab your CSV file and load it up. What should happen then is it will load all of the recipients right here in this first box. But because I chose the more advanced file by row option, I need to go and select the folder where my documents are going to reside first. You'll see if I click on browse here, it will tell me that files must be selected before the CSV file when you're using file per row mode. So here I'm going to click on browse, and I can either choose a document that's in my library, or I can go to my local file system. So we'll go to local file system, and we're going to go ahead and browse to our GigaSign folder that we have. And I'm going to go into my Scenario 2 file by row, and I'm going to choose that folder called Docs. This is where the Doc 1 and Doc 2 were going to be located, and I'm just going to select the folder itself. Then you'll notice that there's going to be multiple documents in that folder. Now it shows checkboxes over here, but interesting that if you select them, it says checkboxes do nothing when you're using file by row, because again, it's going to do a search. So it doesn't really matter there. As long as we've selected the folder and we can see our files that we want to be using in here, you can see that there's Doc 1 and Doc 2, and they're both Word files. So I think that's going to be just sufficient for what we want. Next, we're going to go and grab our CSV file. So I'll click on Browse, and we're going to go to our sign folder. We're going to go to GigaSign. We're going to go to scenario number 2, and we're going to grab that GigaSign data 2 file that we prepared earlier on. You'll see how it loads that information into GigaSign, and it will show you the recipients as well as any of the passcode or any other information that you would have specified in column A of the CSV. At this point, we're pretty much ready to go. All we need to do is click the send button and off it will go. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's click on send. And what we're going to get is some messaging coming back from the server at this point. You can see how it says requesting sent, and now it says all messages were sent successfully. So if we go back over to our Adobe Sign dashboard, that's one place where we can see the transactions as they're being sent out. Let's close that. So if we go back to our Adobe Sign dashboard, we'll be able to see these transactions that were sent out. You'll see that if we go to Manage, we'll see all 3 of those transactions listed as being in progress. So I'll click in progress, and we can see that there's our one for Tony, our one for John, and our one for Jane, and each of them have their own unique title on there. So of course I can select one of these if I need to, and if I need to, I can send reminders or cancel that process from here. So that is that's going to show you your transaction. Where one of the differences between MegaSign and GigaSign is that you will not have a tool on the left-hand side over here to be able to go and manage those GigaSigns. They are being pushed into Adobe Sign as an individual transaction. So they will show up as individual transactions on the management screen up here, but you can't go and manage them as you could with MegaSign. But one of the nice things is that back over here in our GigaSign tool, you can do some of those management actions. So here, for instance, if I click on the second icon in the GigaSign, that is going to be send management. And here you'll have all of the GigaSign transactions you've sent out in the past. Let's open up the one from today, and I can see that I sent it out to John Doe, Jane Smith, and Tony Blue. If I need to find out information about any of those, I can go in and select the line item and open it up, and I can see what document was sent. In this case, you can see document 1 was sent. If I open up the one for Jane Smith, I can see document 2 was sent based on the identifier in the CSV file. If I need to find out a little bit more where this currently stands, I can right click and do update status. It will do a poll back to the server and look for it, and you can see in this case it says that it is now out for signature. If I need to update the status on all of them, I can just go to the parent item in this branch here and right click on it and choose update status, and it'll update status of all of the transactions at once. Now, if we were signing one of these, let's go over to our emails and let's go ahead and sign one of these. So we can see that here's the one that went to Tony Blue. So it says signature requested on vendor agreement, and his company is called Preferred Supplier Inc. So if I open that up and I will sign that, we should see that his information from the CSV file again is merged with the document. and sent out. So we can see his information in there. Now, in this case, we pre-populated the fields, but we did not lock them down. We didn't make them read-only. So technically, he could come in here and look at some of the information and go, well, you know what? It's not 33 Michigan Avenue. It's going to be 38 Michigan Avenue, and it's going to be, let's say it's going to be suite, 234 here, for instance. So we're going to do a change to that particular data in that form, and then I'm going to come down here and sign that document. And I'll sign that as just Tony Blue. And click apply. And of course, sign at the bottom. So there's our first signature from our GigaSign transactions. And the redirect to our website that we identified in the tool itself. So now if we go back over to GigaSign and of course do a update status again, and we look at the Tony Blue, you see how it's now showing a checkbox right on that particular item, letting me know that that one has been signed. Of course, if I open it up, I also have the information here saying that it is signed, and it's giving me some of the status history as well, when he got that document, when he viewed it, and when he signed it. I can also, using this tool, download the signed PDF. Again, this can be done on an individual row basis, or we can do it at the top by going to the identifier for this particular set of GigaSign transactions. And I can right-click and say download the signed documents that have been collected. So that's going to allow me to sign those. That's going to allow me to save those documents locally, and then I'll be able to open those up. So this is the GigaSign tool. GigaSign allows us to send in bulk with more features than what MegaSign provides. It is a separate utility compared to running that in your Adobe Sign dashboard, but I think you'll find that it has some advanced features that I think are worthwhile.